Matt Cook here, and I want to tell you about how I raise my testosterone levels. And this is really going to shock you because you may have heard that people have to take testosterone injections, pills, patches, or whatever. I'm not a doctor. We're not doctors. I'm not telling you not to do that. That's up to you and your doctor. But this is just my experience. I have found that people that have low testosterone, especially well, any man, younger men, older men, that they always have one thing that is causing the low testosterone.
Okay, what is that?
That is high cortisol.
Ah, high cortisol.
High cortisol.
Yes, because cortisol. Why is that? Cortisol
Yeah,
is
cortisol is it's a hormone that we secrete in two different situations. We
okay.
secrete it when we're not eating, when we need blood sugar. So it's a blood sugar hormone. It's probably the most important blood sugar hormone.
So you have to have cortisol to live, right? That's
Yeah, well, the other thing it does is it suppresses inflammation. And we're always getting inflammation. And so if we didn't have enough cortisol, it'd be like the inflammation would go crazy and we would die from our own inflammatory situation.
okay.
So it's like this. Let's say you have your thumb and you're hammering a nail and you hit your thumb by mistake, right? Your
Right.
thumb gets all big red and inflamed. If we didn't have cortisol, it would just get more and more inflamed and we would just end up completely all red all over and we would keel over and that would be it.
Okay.
So cortisol controls that inflammatory response. There's always a balance, going on between the inflammation and against the inflammation. So cortisol is the primary hormone against inflammation, which I'm going to tell you what causes that inflammation. It's not really hitting your thumb with a hammer either. And also cortisol, remember, it's the most important blood sugar hormone. People are always taught that insulin is the most important blood sugar hormone, but it is not. It is actually cortisol. So,
Interesting.
yeah. So let's just say, for example, you go on a low carb diet or a carnivore diet and you're not eating any carbs at all. Well, your body needs sugar to exist. Your body
Right.
must have sugar, so your body makes sugar. So what happens first is if you're on a carnivore or you're like just on a low carb or keto diet or whatever, then your body starts increasing your cortisol levels right away. And then the cortisol will go ahead and it starts eating up your proteins, your muscle, your organ mass, your skin, your brain, your genitals. Everything gets sort of slowly dissolved away and turned into sugar.
So when you're not consuming sugar, and that can be from starch as well, right?
It
'Cause
could be from starch or sugar, yes.
then your body will use cortisol to turn your flesh or
Yeah,
your muscles
exactly.
and your organs into sugar.
Yeah, because you must have sugar to survive. You must have sugar to survive.
Okay.
Your blood has to have blood sugar of around 65 or 70 or whatever in that range, not to be too reactive. You have to. You will die without that. So your cortisol is always there to make sure we have enough blood sugar. And it dissolves away our protein that's in our body mass, what's called lean mass, which is our organs, our muscles, our brain, and so forth. It dissolves that away to create the sugar. Now, if you're eating enough protein, like you're eating meat and stuff, it can turn some of that into sugar. So it's not just your organs, but it turns out that it really does end up causing a lot of shrinkage in your brain and your organs when you have low carb for an extended period of time. So that raises cortisol quite a lot.
So when we're talking sugar, when you're talking sugar, you're talking, just to be clear, you're talking fruit, you're talking table
Yeah.
sugar, you're talking carbs, like that kind of thing.
White rice, bread,
Right.
fruit, juice, all that sort of thing, Cokes.
Pasta.
Yeah, pasta. Yeah, all that. That's carbs. That's sugar. It turns into sugar in our body. And so that actually brings cortisol down. So
So you're
sugar
not talking
brings it
about
down.
like vegetables or meat particularly.
Right. No,
Right.
exactly. Or eggs or cheese. Those all have very few carbs in them or no carbs in them. So they're
Right.
going to cause a lot more cortisol without actually um, lowering the cortisol. So basically, what I discovered about testosterone is that there's an inverse relationship between it. And for example, in this finding in this paper, the acute suppression of circulating testosterone levels by cortisol in men is very simple. And the fact is that when your cortisol is high, your testosterone falls.
Okay.
So men with low testosterone, especially younger men and older men, I have talked to men in their 30s who have low testosterone, in their 20s of low testosterone. It's so common. And that's because people are pursuing these crazy exercise and diet regimens today, and that raises cortisol a lot. Okay, so you could tell that you have high cortisol because you have belly fat, You may have a pot belly. You can't get rid of it. People say, Matt, I work out 5 days a week. I work out in the gym 5 days a week, at least an hour, 2 hours, and I have this belly I can't get rid of. Well, no wonder, because all that exercise is actually stressful and it causes high cortisol. So if you're working out a lot, you can't gain muscle easily, you don't recover well from your workouts, you're not always sleeping so well, that means you have low testosterone, basically. That's a symptom. And obviously, if you get a blood test, you get what's called a male panel. They'll give you testosterone, free testosterone, DHT, and usually some other things, which is a good indicator if it comes in low.
Okay.
So basically, what you want to do to raise your testosterone levels, and you can raise it a lot, is you can raise it by simply lowering your cortisol levels. Now,
how do you do that?
Well, I want to just say, before we talk about how to do that, there may also be other reasons, Heather, why you might have low testosterone levels besides cortisol, although they're not as common. But a big one could be you're on medications that's lowering testosterone. SSRIs for depression and anxiety can often lower testosterone levels.
Oh, that's super interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of drugs can, especially the psychoactive drugs. Some things like drugs taken for bipolar, all sorts of drugs for psychoactive for that can lower testosterone, and other things can lower it. But the primary reason why men have low T is generally high cortisol. So let us talk about what cortisol is, and how we can lower it in order to raise testosterone, how quickly that can take place. Okay. So remember, cortisol has a major role in blood sugar because it always is secreted when you're not eating sugar or starch of any kind. So here's a good time when you're not eating: at night, when you're sleeping. No, very few of us eat when we're sleeping. There is a condition where there's a condition where people sleepwalk, and I guess they could be eating, but it's not that common. So yeah, I mean, if you're fasting, in other words, if you're sleeping, you're not eating, or if you're just skipping meals, your cortisol level is going to be high. And cortisol has a cycle to it where it tends to be really high by early morning. That's the highest it gets.
Right. Doesn't it help you wake up in the morning?
Yeah, when you wake up in the morning, you have high cortisol. Yeah, exactly. So the first thing you want to do is you want to make sure you have plenty of good carbs. And one of the things that you want to do is you never want to go an extended period of time without eating breakfast. You want to wake up and you want to have some breakfast. I don't mean black coffee. I mean carbs. Like I like masa harina, which is the Mexican nixtamalized corn. You can get the cheap corn flour that they sell, and then you just cook it in a microwave. Yeah, I love it. It's like grits or polenta, the Italian version or the U.S. Southern version of it. But the corn is cooked in lime. It's a traditional way. They've been doing it in Central America for hundreds and hundreds of years. It makes the corn more digestible. So I like the masa harina, and I add water, and I cook it in the microwave a long time, and I add some milk to it, and it's really, really nice. And the milk has some sugar in it also. I generally don't sweeten it beyond that, but it's lots and lots of carbs, so that gets things going. I might have the tortillas, and I like only the corn tortillas, the ones that are traditionally made with masa harina, and I have some jelly or jam on them in the morning. That's what I usually have. I have coffee with collagen, which is the Great Lakes collagen that comes in the green can.
That's what I'm drinking right now.
Yeah. So that's really excellently anti-inflammatory, and that'll lower my cortisol levels right down over the next hour or two. Because what causes cortisol is either not eating, or the biggest reason we have cortisol is we need it because we have a leaky gut. So in our gut, we store anywhere from 2 to 3 pounds of, this is gross, but bacteria, raw sewage, bacteria, fungi, yeast, viruses.
Right. Microbiome, right? Like it's just
microbiome.
It's part of the way our just human ecosystem works.
Right. We're a colony of our own cells and maybe 10 times as many other cells. At least 10 times as many. Yeah. So that's something you don't think about. But those are really super important. Well, the thing is, we have this gut wall that's supposed to keep them all in, right? The problem is when we have a leaky gut, the bacteria secrete a poison called LPS, or endotoxins, if you will, and those enter our body through the leaky gut.
You know, I remember when we started talking about this, Matt, like, and I was like, this has got to be like woo woo stuff. And then I started reading the research, and I'm like, oh my God, this is so real. It is such a real phenomenon, the leaky gut thing.
Oh yeah, everybody's gut is leaky, and as we get older, it's leakier. Or if we're just not that well, it's leaky. And when we have the flu or when we're sick, our gut's super leaky. And the symptoms of a leaky gut, if you have very, very strong endotoxin symptoms, are just like the flu. In my case, I get aches in my wrists and my bones. I feel sort of a brain fog, malaise. I just don't feel good in general, and I have that achiness. That's endotoxin symptoms, because when you have a flu virus, it causes your gut to be super leaky.
Okay.
So that's actually it. So everybody should recognize endotoxin symptoms. You should learn how to recognize them. So the cortisol is necessary because endotoxins cause a lot of inflammation, and if we need cortisol to counter that inflammation so it doesn't get out of control. And so if we have a leaky gut, we're going to have high cortisol all the time. That's bad. We're going to have it because we don't tolerate foods, certain foods. Okay, I'm going to give you 5 foods that I would try to avoid if I were you. Beans. Beans create a lot of endotoxins. Raw vegetables, undercooked vegetables, vegetables that are al dente, except for carrots. Carrots
Right.
are good. Thank you for reminding me. Carrots are good. Raw carrots are great. The third thing is the cheese that you see in the produce section or the dairy section that's got, you read it, it says it has, what do they call it? Vegetable rennet,
Yes.
right? Or enzymes. There's different words for it. Microbial rennet. All that is fake, and it causes endotoxin reaction. It's really bad.
We've really gotten away from eating what I would call like real food supply a lot.
Yeah.
And that's one of the symptoms of it there, the cheese.
That is one of the symptoms of it. Yeah, that is one of the symptoms. And by the way, I'll put along with that is the things that have gums in them.
Right.
Vegetable gums, acacia, carrageenan, all kinds of gums. Those will cause endotoxins too, not just the enzymes in cheese, but all this processed food. The fourth thing is PUFA fats, seed oil fats, from peanut, canola, flaxseed, soy oil, corn oil, anything like that is also a big creator of endotoxins because it itself participates in this inflammatory cascade in the body itself. Okay, then the last one I would say is wheat. Although some people tolerate wheat okay, I found that most people don't tolerate wheat that well. I think eventually, if you're really healthy, you can eat wheat, no problem, but I would avoid it because I think it really causes leaky gut and endotoxins, and therefore lowers testosterone levels.
So what do you eat instead of wheat if you want to eat a lot
Well,
of...
I like well-cooked white rice as a fundamental diet, like they do in Asia. Well-cooked white rice is a really good food to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Or the nixtamalized corn, like those corn tortillas that are traditionally made. They just have corn and maybe salt. And there's no other ingredients in them, and lime, trace of lime, they say. I like those. People ask me about oatmeal. I don't think oatmeal is very good. I think oatmeal causes a lot of endotoxins. I don't recommend oatmeal. Oat bran is okay. It's not oatmeal. Have you ever had oat bran?
Oat bran occasionally, once in
It's
a while.
okay. I think it can be positive. It doesn't have the same issues as oatmeal, but my primary... And then for a lot of people, white potatoes that are well cooked, they can tolerate very well. I don't tolerate white potatoes well. A lot of people don't because they have various toxins in them that cause allergies and irritation for some people. The white potatoes are a nightshade and they have certain toxins. So I personally don't tolerate them, but some people do fine with white potatoes. So those are ways you can have a lot of carbs that won't cause leaky gut and will suppress cortisol and raise testosterone.
Right, and particularly the white rice is really, really... A lot of this is really easy to fix, but white rice is particularly easy to fix, especially if you get a rice cooker.
You get a rice cooker, yeah.
You just stick it in with some water and it does it pretty much.
That's right. So leaky gut is the big thing. Foods we don't tolerate. The next one I would say is a fatty liver. We have published a liver cleanse that you can get, and we show you how to cleanse your liver. It's beyond what we can do at this moment in this video. And the last two are things that we see a lot of people getting into, which is big protein portions. So a big protein portion, like a big hunk of meat, like a big steak or something, is a tremendous amount of protein. And protein will raise cortisol levels. the only way to counter it is really if you have enough carbs, and there's really no way to eat enough carbs if you have like a huge steak or something like that. So people who are eating a lot of meat are going to have a lot of high cortisol, and that's really because of what I call insufficient carb coverage, not enough carbs to cover the amount of protein you're consuming.
Interestingly, I used to eat a lot more meat, and as we've worked together, I've really I still eat meat. I mean, I'm not definitely not a vegetarian, but I eat less than I ever have, and I actually eat
Right.
more carbs, and I feel better, and I have more energy, and I like for me, I'm not dealing with low testosterone or anything, but like for me, it really makes me feel a lot better to eat that way.
Yeah, but actually, a lot of women do have low testosterone, and the same things apply actually.
Well,
But yeah, absolutely.
and if a
Um,
woman has low testosterone, her sex drive will be low. So it's to your
exactly.
benefit, guys, for a woman, you're a woman to have
She
higher
should have the same diet. Exactly, the same reasons.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Sex drive will be higher.
Even more so because women have much smaller livers than men do, and they actually need more carbs and less protein. So the effects of cortisol, as we said, if we lower it, it's going to be way better because the primary thing it will do is it will lower testosterone, and it will dissolve our proteins, give us a pot belly. It also destroys the beta cells in the pancreas, so eventually we'll get type 2 diabetes from it. It causes destruction of the thymus gland, which is a gland that's in the like under your breastbone, which is an basically a defense. It's where white blood cells are made, and it's
Okay.
very important for our defenses against microbes. And it will destroy and shrink brain tissue. So chronically high cortisol causes your brain to be smaller, and so increases dementia. So the best way you could do it is, I'll just give you a few quick tips here. Eat before working out. So don't work out on an empty stomach. Eat before you work out. Have some fruit, have some protein, have some yogurt with some fruit in it, have some fruit and some milk. A great workout drink to have before working out is chocolate milk
I love
because
chocolate.
it has the
Tastes
fat, the sugar, and all of that,
right.
to give you some good nourishment and keep cortisol levels down during a workout and after your workout.
Right. So you're not saying to have a big heavy meal. You're just
No,
saying make sure that you have some.
don't eat on its own. Make sure you have something. It should have some fat and carbs in it.
Okay.
The fat makes the carbs last longer in your gut, so you get a longer period of time when you have those carbs getting into your body.
That was revolutionary for me when we first talked about the carbs plus a little bit of fat. Like seriously changed my life. Like
Yeah,
yeah, I started eating like that, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, when my wife Jody, when she's going to go to work out, I always make sure remind her to have some carbs before she goes out. She's not hungry in the morning, but she likes to work out in the morning, so she just has something to eat before she goes to work out. It makes a big
Right.
difference. A liver cleanse is a good idea because the liver gets very fatty. A fatty liver doesn't store much sugar.
Okay.
So your cortisol levels are going to be chronically high when your liver is fatty because you're going to run out of sugar all the time. And then you're going to have high cortisol.
The liver is where your body, if you're healthy and you don't
Mm-hmm.
have a fatty liver, the liver is where your body stores your sugar
It stores
reserves.
most of your sugar. That's right, in the form of what's called glycogen. So that
Right.
will power you for 10 or 12 hours if you don't eat, if you're healthy, if you have a
Right.
good liver. And so you could go to sleep and not have high cortisol. Your cortisol still rises, but not as much.
Right. Okay.
So you want to cleanse your liver, you want to eat lots of healthy carbs, and you want to heal your gut, avoiding the bad foods. And then I found some things that have been helpful. A peptide called BPC 157 I found has been helpful. I don't think it can be taken steadily. It needs to be cycled. Another one I found is really good is low dose naltrexone for healing a leaky gut. Naltrexone is historically been used for lowering as a reversal agent for people who overdose on morphine or opiates, but it's also used to in larger amounts for people who are addicted to drugs or alcohol. But it's very, very tiny amounts of it. Very tiny amounts are extremely helpful in lowering inflammation. So you don't need as much cortisol, and it heals your gut. There was a study where 75% of the people who had a very, very bad colitis got their gut completely healed. The other 25% mostly healed. I've never seen a study with such good results, and this was just with a few milligrams of naltrexone per day, which has virtually no side effects, and it's very safe, good safety profile. And then the last one that I also consider is old-fashioned, what they call first-generation antihistamines. such as cyproheptadine, especially, or ketotifen, they can be extremely, Benadryl to some degree, they can heal the gut by just taking them for a few weeks in the right amounts. I'm not telling you to take any of these things, but yeah, absolutely. And then your gut isn't leaky, and now your cortisol levels can fall and your testosterone goes up. In my case, I had low T, and I went from low T to, I'm in my 60s, and my T is around 900, and it has been on multiple blood tests.
What is 900? Is that good? I mean, I'm assuming that's good.
Well, the peak, they claim, depending on the lab, the reference range is around 300 to 1100.
Okay.
A lot of men, or even young men now, only are 300 or 400.
So 900 is like, especially
900 is a very good
your
testosterone
60s,
level.
especially. It's really
Good for anybody at any age, really. Yeah. But the amazing thing nowadays is you have very young men who have very low testosterone, and I know they're asking me about it all the time.
It's been falling for decades.
It's been falling for decades, and I think it's gotten a lot worse in the last 10 years. And a lot of men are not that masculine, the younger men today.
Right.
I don't know if you know what I mean. They're just not, they don't look that masculine. They don't sound masculine.
What do you think's going on there?
I think they have very low testosterone and high cortisol, high stress levels. So that's why I wanted to make this video. Because, you can, and you'll find a lot of things get better. I mean, your beard will grow faster. I'm not going to promise growth down in the male area, but it's been known to happen quite consistently.
Gain muscle mass if you have higher.
Gain muscle mass.
Right.
Your pot belly will disappear. You get more confidence.
That one's remarkable to me.
Well, it's amazing because even if you're not a talky guy or an outgoing guy, you'll just be more assertive with women and with men. More, they'll respect you more and they'll look up to you more. Maybe even be a little afraid of you at times. It gives you what I call male authority.
Right. We've had so many men write in after they do some of these protocols and raise their testosterone levels. They just say, like, how much differently women respond to them without them really doing anything differently. Like, they're not like learning any like pickup artist techniques or anything like that. They're just like, women just respond to them differently, just as
completely
them
differently.
being them. Yes.
Completely differently. Yeah. Yep. And one last thing I want to say, I don't believe that high testosterone causes prostate problems. I think it prevents prostate problems. But as always, if you're under treatment for any medical condition, you want to talk to your doctor first before you start some of these methods that we're talking about.
Right.
All right. Excellent. So if you'd like to learn more, what I suggest you do is head over to dailymedicaldiscoveries.com, and then we have a free ebook we'll send you, and just go ahead and put your email address in there, and then you'll be starting to get our excellent daily newsletter, dailymedicaldiscoveries.com. So we'll see you.